the type of sword popular during the migration period and the Merovingian period of European history, particularly among the Germanic peoples, was derived from the Roman-era Spatha, and gave rise to the Carolingian, a Viking sword type of the 8th to 10th centuries. The blade is normally smoother, shows a very shallow fuller, and often has multiple bands of pattern welding within the central portion. The handles were often of perishable material, and there are few surviving examples. Blade length measured between 28 inches and 32 inches in length and 1.7 to 2.4 in width. The tang has a length of only some 4 inches to 5 inches long. The blades show very little taper, usually ending in a rounded tip. Surviving examples of these Merovingian period swords have notably been found in the context of the Scandinavian Germanic and Age. Names and terminology. There is no single term that can be reconstructed as having referred specifically to the Spatha in Common Germanic. There are a number of terms and epithets which refer to the sword, especially in Germanic poetry. Sworden, cutting weapon. Beowulf has the compound Fjord referring to a pattern-welded blade. A Thumbsword, renowned treasure sword, is given to Beowulf as a reward for his heroism. The same sword is called the Guthsword, battle sword, later on. Fjord, tentatively associated with the name varies by Jacob Grimm. Maki, found in Gothic as well as in Old English and Old Norse, perhaps related to the Greek mu alpha chi alpha iota rho alpha. In any case, Gothic Maki in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 17 translates this Greek word. The compound Hafmes in Beowulf, literally hilt sword, presumably describes a sword with an exceptionally long hilt. Slavic MC is usually regarded as a loan from the Germanic word. Terms for blade, point, or edge, which pars pro toto could also refer to the sword as a whole, include bilho, splitter, cleaver. A bill could be any bladed tool, especially farm implements such as scythes or sickles. The compound guthbill, wigbill, build-a-bill, battle blade refers to the sword, but also the simplex bill is used. Helion has bills biti, sword bite. The Hildebrand slide has a parallelism establishing bill and suites synonyms. Thramja, edge, blade, perhaps Tacitus frame a spear, lance, but Old Norse thramja means edges, sword blades. Igho, edge, odd point. Gazo meaning cutter, the normal term for spear, but in the early period may also have referred to the sword. For the testimony of Germanic mythology and the Icelandic sagas, swords could also be given individual names. Examples include the magic sword of Hogni, named Darlif after the dwarf Durin, Skonung and Hviting, two sword names from the Cormac saga, Nagling and Runting from Beowulf, and Mimung forged by Wayland the Smith. Early development. Roman Spatha. The Spatha came into widespread use in the Roman army during the 3rd century. It was during this time that the early Germanic tribes adopted the weapon. There are types of the Spatha dated to the 3rd and 4th centuries, associated with the northern parts of the empire, such as the Straubing-Nidum type, but these are usually still classed as late Roman Spathae, as they are still found in a Roman military, not a native Germanic context. An early find of Roman Spathae in a native Germanic context is the deposit of 67 Roman swords in the Vimos bog. Krefeld type. An early type of recognizably Germanic sword is the so-called Krefeld type, named for a find in late Roman-era military burials at Gale Dooba Castle. Krefeld. The military burials at Gale Dooba begin in the late 1st century with the establishment of a Roman camp in Germania Inferior, and they continue without interruption throughout the period of withdrawal of Roman troops and the establishment of early Frankish presence in the mid-5th century. The Krefeld type Spatha appear in graves from approximately the 430s through the 460s. In these graves, the exalted prestige of the sword is not yet fully developed, and some of them are surprisingly poor. They rather seem to still continue the tradition of military graves of the Roman period, of warriors buried with the personal weapon, the presence of a sword perhaps indicating service in the late Roman army. 6 Krefeld-type swords are known from Francia, 4 from Alemannia, and another 2 from England. Merovingian period. A native industry producing Germanic swords then emerges from the 5th century, contemporary with the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. The Germanic Spatha did not replace the native sea-axe, sometimes referred to as gladius or ensis sword, but technically a single-edged weapon, a knife. It rather establishes itself by the 6th century, at the top of the scale of prestige associated with weapons. While every Germanic warrior grave of the pagan period was furnished with weapons as grave goods, the vast majority of the 6th to 7th century graves have a sea-axe or a spear, and only the richest have swords. Swords could often become important heirlooms. Ethelstan Etheling, son of King Etheld, in a will of c. 1015 bequeathed to his brother Edmund the sword of King Offa, which at the time must have been over 200 years old. Gold-hilt Spatha. The gold-hilt Spatha was a very rare and prestigious type of sword in the later 5th century. Specimens are known mostly from Alemannia, but also as far afield as Moravia. An Alemannic type is distinguished from a Franconian type based on scabbard mounts and hilt design by Quast. A total of 20 examples are known, 10 of each type. One of the Franconian examples is the sword of Childeric I, recovered from his tomb at Tournai. Some authors have suggested that Childeric's sword was a ceremonial sword not intended for combat, perhaps produced for the occasion of his burial. Ring sword. The ring sword is a particular variant of the Germanic migration period swords. Ring swords are characterized by a small ring fixed to the hilt. Ring swords came into fashion in the last phase of the migration period. These swords were prestigious, prized possessions, probably reserved for kings and high nobility. The ring is interpreted as a symbolic oath ring. The design appears to have originated in the late 5th century, possibly with the early Merovingians, and quickly spread to England and Scandinavia. The Beowulf poem uses the term ring mail, literally ring sword or ring ornament, and scholars who interpret this as referring to this type of sword can point to it as one indication that the Beowulf poet was still drawing from an unbroken tradition of the pagan period. As ring swords disappeared from the archaeological record with Christianization by the late 7th century. Examples include the Beckham ring sword, dated c. AD 475 to 525, found at Beckham, Germany. Wannenberg-Fürstenberg, grave 61, 6th century. The Schretzheim sword, found in tomb 78 in the Schretzheim Alemannic cemetery, Dillingen, Bavaria, dated to between 580 and 620 CE. The sword is a rare example of a blade inscribed with an elder Fudark inscription, 4 runes arranged so that the staves form a cross shape. England. The Kent ring sword, Sutton Hoo ring sword, the Chesildown II ring sword, early 6th century. Staffordshire Hoard K543, a silver sword ring fitting of fixed type, among the treasure found near Hammerwich, Staffordshire, thought to be associated with one of the elder pommel caps in the Hoard. The piece has been dated to the early 6th century. Pommel cap K711 also displays characteristic damage caused by the installation and later removal of a ring fitting in antiquity, like the pommel cap from the Snosbach ritual deposit in Västergötland, Scandinavia. The Snartamo sword, found 1933 in Tomb 5 at Snartamo, Vest-Agder, Norway, dated to c. 500 CE. Vendel ring sword, found at Vendel, Uppland, Sweden, 6th century. The Valstanarum sword, found in Gotland, provides an important indication of the spread of the fashion. The sword was made in the early 6th century, and a ring was added only later, around 600 CE, damaging part of the existing hilt decoration. Transition to the Carolingian sword. In the 8th century, Frankish swordsmiths increasingly gained access to high-quality steel imported from Central Asia, where a import from Central Asia, where a crucible steel industry began to establish itself. The earliest types of Viking swords, according to the typology of Peterson, are dated to the second half of the 8th century, while the Viking sword proper emerges by the turn of the 9th century.